rehash some of those here tonight for the people who weren't in that session 10 years ago. And 5 years ago, is Rhonda last year? Anyway, Rhonda talked about what it was like coming to Acalanes as a new student from Oklahoma, not knowing anybody, and sort of how she got integrated. So I'll moderate. I'll toss out some questions. They're all going to make some opening statements. But if you'll indulge me, I wanted to share some of my very random and scattered memories from Acalanes. So in the category of school-sponsored activity that in retrospect seems a little bit odd would be one of the lunchtime rallies when they set up sort of big long tables and the students competed against each other in quarters. There was another lunchtime. Gary Bragg was Gary Bragg. So there was another lunchtime rally where there was a group of football players and they were blindfolded, and then they had someone kiss the football player, and then they had to guess who it was, and they had to describe what it was like to be kissed by that person. The person who kissed them all with their mothers. Turns out the best slogan for anyone ever running for class office that I can recall was actually Debbie O'Brien, and it was Debbie Does Dons.
They made me take it down.
There's no justice.
But I won.
Yeah. You had the last laugh. I wonder why. Best prank for I think our freshman year was when someone managed to hoist like 20 tires over the flagpole, which I still don't know how they could have done that, but it was likely that person became an engineer. Teacher who I still get to kind of talk about and dine out on, and that was having a 24-year-old, as a journalism teacher, having a 24-year-old 49er cheerleader.
Who the janitor's name comments that?
Oh, is that right? Oh, yeah, okay. Reminder that I was no longer at Stanley, seeing people in the locker room as freshmen smoking pot before PE class. Sort of fashion statement, the way that we really could only sling our backpack over one shoulder, not two, which I'm told my daughter tells me still the case. And then rivalry that still won't die. I'm sorry that Julianne's not here because I don't know if it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I asked her, so where are you living? And she said, she sort of sheepishly said, Bermuda. And then she said, but I do all my shopping in Lafayette. So I'll spare you, many of my most vivid memories are actually from Stanley. I'll spare you those memories, but I just think about some of the seminal moments, like the ski trip in which 50 people got suspended. and just some seminal, I was thinking about some of the seminal figures that we had at Stanley. People like Chris Howard, Tim McDonald, David Lazaire, Chell Syverson, Walt Schneider, these twins who lasted about 8 weeks, Casey and Mark Randall, Matt Lovato, and not last but not least, my 8th grade girlfriend, Lori Ganser.
That's scary that you remember.
But we're here to talk about high school. I was looking at, can anyone come up with the little quick quiz? Does anyone know the actual day that we graduated?
June 17th.
Close.
I found some 2 days ago, but I didn't bring it.
Okay. So it was June 13th, which was actually a Friday, and so that week was the release of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It was also, the next day was Donald Trump's 40th birthday. Which is a nice little segue into, I'll do some quick ground rules and then I'll shut up. So I'm sure everyone has opinions about Donald Trump and other pressing national and international issues. Given that we all went to high school together, and this is sort of the one place where we can kind of be really nostalgic and everyone sort of understands what we're talking about. We'll try to keep the discussion focused on high school as opposed to, say, Donald Trump or other things. Second, we'll try not to settle any grudges here. And third, we'll try not to brag about our kids. We'll just sort of take this as given. They're all brilliant. They're all destined for greatness. And we'll leave it at that. So the panelists. So starting with Randy Horn, graduated from Cal. He traveled through Europe with a 5-pound piece of the Berlin Wall in 1990. Let me pull up here.
You're gonna have to prompt me too, because I forgot what I was supposed to.
He was the only member of our class to earn 4 varsity letters in one year. And the start of his sophomore year, he went to a Def Leppard concert with Sean Buren.
My first concert.
Joel Needler has been married since 1993, which is interesting because in the final final issue of the Blueprint, our senior year, in the predictions page, the prediction was, and I'd love to know who wrote this, it wasn't me, that Joel Needler will be married 4 times, twice to the same woman.
No, you still have time.
Joel lives in Nashville. Like all of us, he's had a number of different jobs, 2 of the most interesting being one, he was hired to collect golf balls out of the ponds on golf courses, and he also had a job manufacturing toilets and urinals.
Yes.
And he does occasional stand-up comedy, so maybe we'll be treated to that. And Asha Sachdev lives in San Ramon. She's often mistaken for either a doctor or an IT professional. And I probably shouldn't reveal this to the Acalanes people in the room, but she used a fabricated middle name for her senior portrait. And just before they all start speaking, just in the spirit of the season, if you want to fact check any of the panelists, just go to blueprint.com, where a dedicated team of staffers will be laboring to ensure that real-time updates. Regrettably, Anna Marie there was a family emergency, and so she can't make it. So, but Randy, you want to take it away?
Actually, one quick question.
Oh yeah.
Are we to assume that you're Ferris Bueller?
All right, so Matt asked me to prepare some kind of opening statement, most of which I've forgotten. But I'm happy to be here. I feel like I haven't been. I feel like I've hardly stepped in Lafayette since my folks moved to the North Bay. I've hardly stepped in Lafayette since we graduated. So it was kind of weird to drive through town and I've been telling my wife that there's statues of me all over, and so it's but it's good to be back. I'm happy to see Joel is one of my favorite guys ever, and so I'm happy to be up here with him. And Matt asked me to think about what I remember about high school, and I have nothing but great memories about it, really. And some of the things that I didn't like about it was, my football team only won 2 games. That's a bummer. But outside, I got a lot of speeding tickets in high school, and I crashed my car a few times, which I think was maybe my only vice in high school. It was the only thing I didn't drink in high school, so it's like the only thing I think I couldn't figure out how to do was keep my car on the road.
And is this your new car that you got at home?
No, I never crashed that one. Yeah, it was I had to be trained up until that point.
Randy, I thought you drove a moped.
I did for a while. Crashed that also. So and it's I've gotten a little better behind the wheel of a car, but I still.
Do you actually look at the road now, or
yeah.
you still talking?
I'm prone to falling asleep at the wheel, so my wife would be driving home. And And so, you know, I have just great memories, and I'm actually kind of surprised that I'm mostly remembering people's names. I'm sure I'll screw it up down the road here, but I'm happy to be here. I tried to come up with some good stories, which you guys, I think some of the people in this room are involved in, and you can tell me if I'm remembering it correctly.
Good. All right. Asha.
Hello. If we didn't talk in high school, which is true for most of you and myself, I'm Asha Satchev, and it was very fun last night that a lot of people knew my name thanks to Matt putting my name in lights, who I had hardly spoken to in high school either. I actually went to Walnut Creek Intermediate, so that's why I didn't know many of you in elementary or junior high. And unlike these guys, I had to type out what I was going to say, and I just sent it to Matt for approval and editing. And by the way, he did edit. He goes, oh, this is funny, this is not funny. So just bear with me, it's partly his fault. But I did come from Walnut Creek, and my parents' home, they're still there, borders Walnut Creek, Lafayette. There were not many Asian Indians in school, in contrast to today, where my son goes to school and all his classmates are Indian and Chinese in San Ramon. I mean, it's just shocking now. There was a girl named Lynn Polyuma. I don't know if any of you knew her, but she's Native American, lived on a reservation. So Lynn and I became friends. We had the same hairstyle, same skin tone. People would call her Asha and me Lynn. Like, we made it horrible for people. I was friends with Sarah Wackenheim, with Peiling Chosian, Christine Chang, who's here, Carrie Ta. Christine's home life was very similar to mine. Our parents were kind of stuck in their Asian world, and we would creep out of the house and try to become very American. But Sarah was the person. Sarah Wackenheim, you guys know Sarah, right? So she couldn't be here today, but we connected again through Facebook. So she was fascinating to me. You know, she was all Americana, you know, all American girl, pretty, knew all of you guys. So I just followed her around. Freshman, sophomore year, I dressed like her. She became a boyfriend with, her boyfriend was Zach Innocenti. And so Zach was friends with Steve Rice. So then she kept trying to make the four of us become like couples. So poor Steve was kind of roped into that, and he has the honor of being my first ever slow dance in my life.
Nice. Announcement of that later. You'll have to use it. A total affair of the heart.
And then junior year, senior year, I became more comfortable. I started to kind of get on the track with people that were interested in the same things. And sadly, again, like I was called Dr. Asha when I was young. I didn't become a doctor, but like we were in these intense classes together, Christine, Ernest, and I. And then I met all the other Steves, like Steve Minch, Steve Olson, Steve Sinclair. Like, I don't understand what happened with Steve's our year. All these Steves. And Amy, a lot of Amy's. And so, you know, we started to have our own little group, and we would do tame things like go bowling or go do ice cream nights at Woodward's and things. And then Karen and I were talking about junior year. We had honors English, and some of you know Steve's son. So he became my boyfriend in junior year. And poor Karen, Grace Moon, and I were in a class with Mrs. Town. And she said, pick a book that inspires you and write a report about it. And he picked Harold and the Purple Crayon. And we got a horrible grade. And we were so mad at him, and I still dated him anyway. So, I mean, those are just some of the things. And the history of the yearbook is, you know how you all have a Starbucks name, and Asha's kind of difficult, and Steve felt his name was kind of boring. So I just started calling myself Bernadette to order pizza. So that was my pizza name, which is now Starbucks name. And so it says Asha Bernadette.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. Joel, take it away.
All right, yeah. Great to see everybody. My high school experience was great. I have fond memories. It's great to be back. I kind of divided into two areas of drama and basketball, and I think I really shined in basketball. So,
was that tight uniform you really?
That's right, yeah, the shorts. So, which caused me to join choir. Sorry. So I haven't been back in Lafayette in probably 20 years. I don't know. It's been a long time. It's great to be here, and happy to share stories. And I've been able to keep in touch with guys like Mark Pulver, who lived in Central Oregon at the same time, and Mr. Plotchek has come visited our home with his children in Colorado when I lived in Colorado. So that's all post. We want to stick with the Dons. I get that. So, what's that?
Are you getting the stink eye?
Yeah. But I have a question though to the moderator, if I may. How will this content be used? Do we need to sign a disclaimer of some?
Is there any live feed? Christine was, Christine. Oh yeah, yes. Is the live feed on Facebook happening? Okay. So it's all
Sure.
entree news, so to speak.
So you want a funny story from memory?
Yeah,
Can I go with
right.
that? We just kind of.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
So basketball camp, Santa Clara University. Was that junior year? I can't remember.
Sophomore year.
Yeah, right in there. So I got teamed up with Ken Rader and Duke Little from Camp Lindo, if you remember Duke. We were roommates, and we got into a little bathroom war, which was now, in retrospect, regrettable, because I came out on the short end of that. I thought it'd be funny to take Ken's towel while he was in the shower, one day. So the next day, I wasn't even thinking about it, but I came back to the dorm room and got dressed and put on my Fruit of the Loom and the rest of my shorts, and suddenly there was a very warm, cool sensation rising up my body, and they had placed a generous amount of Bengay in my underwear. So I'm running down the hallway to the restroom to clear the area. By the time I came out, everybody in the camp on that floor was like out in the hallway, watching me. Oh, it was really fun. My kids enjoy that. That's the first mention of a child in this panel so far.
All right. Well, thank you. That was great. So I wrote a few discussion topics on the board here that we could use if we need to spark some thoughts, but I guess let me just stop here first and ask, does anyone have any specific questions or not questions or observations about the high school experience that you want to share with us? And then Asha, do you want to? I was talking to Asha about her junior prom experience, which I think is actually a very interesting story, and maybe one that is a little different than probably a lot of us had. So you want to?
That was glass number 2 wine yesterday. I promised Wendy I would talk about being Indian in the school and all. So my parents have no frame of reference for high school life, American life. So they didn't really, everything that happened, if I got invited to a sleepover, they don't do sleepovers. Why are you going to your friends for dinner? We have dinner here. It was just really hard sometimes. So my parents didn't believe in dating. So if you called the house and you had a male voice, my dad would say, "Hi, why do you want to talk to her? You can talk to her at school," and they would hang up on me. So we weren't really allowed to date or anything like that. That's for marriage, that's right. So I went to junior prom or senior ball with Steve Sant and some other folks, and we went, and my siblings and I conspired, and my parents didn't know we were going. They were at work or somewhere, and I got ready, and we went to dinner, we went to a great event, then we went to Denny's, and then I called home on the landline. Tell your kids what that is, but I called the landline, and my house, I could hear the house, like people screaming, and I could hear something wrong. My sister's like, "Get home now." Oh my God. So they had found the pillows in my bed. So my parents were furious. Where is Asha? Where is Asha? So Steve and I knew the drill. So he parked up the hill from my house. I climbed out of the car in my prom dress. And then I went in the backyard. My sister opened the window. She threw out clothes. I took off my prom dress in the yard. Wow. This was great. I took off my prom dress. And I changed my clothes and threw it back in the window, and then I went to the front door, and I went in, and my parents, in Punjabi, we're from North India, they just, like, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again, but no, and I couldn't reach you, there was no phone or something, I don't know. And then I just got in trouble for being late. They didn't know I went to the prom or anything, and then later on, one of my siblings had a picture of the prom picture in her wallet, and my parents found out later, and they still have a policy of don't ask, don't tell. So we don't really talk about it. You know, so that was funny. That is funny.
That's good.
It's embarrassing because I know my son to do that, and you know, Joel was saying, I hope my daughter doesn't do that, but it was just, you know, desperate times, you know, to be American and have fun and enjoy high school, you know.
Yeah.
The assist from your sister.
I know.
Oh no, we had each other.
Yeah.
So we actually figured out that we had a family friend that was a little, also Indian, but a little bit younger and a little more hip, and so he actually convinced my parents to get us a second phone line. So then we had code names for the boys, and we would say Stella's calling or Julie's calling, like whatever. And my poor parents.
Okay, so I have one.
Yeah, bring it.
And I'm hoping that it's true because I can't totally remember, but maybe Brad, Doug, Jeff can help me. So when we were in high school, the Beverly Hills Cop movie, I believe, was at that time. And one night, because our social lives were so filled, I think we all decided that we were going to try out that whole banana in the tailpipe. So, you know, we get together, we're like, this is a great thing to do on Friday night. We're going to go get a bunch of bananas. We're going to go down to the Acalanes parking lot. We're going to jam these bananas in all the tailpipes we can find. And then my favorite part of it is, but then we didn't have anything else to do for the next 2 hours, so we just hid in the bushes for 2 hours, waited for people to come, and then the anticlimactic part was, one by one, people just got in their cars, started up, the banana just popped right out, flew away. It was like, you know, we were like the early Mythbusters. Did that happen? Did that happen? Yeah. Okay, good. Full Friday nights.
Yeah. All right, we need a little audience participation here, either building on any of this or any of these questions. Does anyone want to tackle one of these?
Well, I'll say my rock concert. So my very first concert was Huey Lewis and the News at the Greek Theater.
Yeah.
But my next concert was Day on the Green, and it was my brother's 19th birthday, I think. So we came back from college his freshman year, so September 10th. And it was
The Police.
the Police,
Oh,
Lingo Park, Lingo Royale, the right? Thompson. Oh yeah. Who was there? Who was there?
I was.
I had no idea.
Vex was there too.
Yeah.
You were there? I remember it was before that journey, the journey triumphs anybody. Anyone have that one? My brother left me somewhere, and so I think that was '83.
Wait. Karen's got the floor here.
So, anyone remember an earlier Day on the Green journey triumphed anybody?
Yeah, that was the summer of
I wasn't allowed.
Summer of '82. Summer of
We
'82.
were freshmen that year, right?
Yeah.
Couldn't go until I was a sophomore.
Yeah, I mean, literally lost for hours, and the dust and, you know, great smells and, yeah.
All right, well, how about, so this is, you know, can you think of anything that your parents let you do that in retrospect seems rather ill-advised? Yeah, and so I'll start, even though my father's here, I'll throw him under the bus.
My parents would have come and say no.
So actually in the concert vein, so Van Halen was playing at the Cow Palace, and I wanted to go, and my younger cousin wanted to go, and so I didn't. It was right before I got my driver's license, and so instead of say my mom, you know, driving me to the concert, which is what you at this time, you know, today you would do, we took Bart, but Bart didn't actually go to the Cow Palace, so we had to catch a bus. And you know, we really had no idea what bus we were taking. But the best part was that the plan for getting home was that Randy Churchill was at the concert. So just find Randy and he'll get the ride home. Well, I don't know how, but we found him. And we rode home in the back of his truck, you know, on a Friday night going across the Bay Bridge, which wasn't the safest thing to do. But,
We're a more resourceful generation.
yeah. So, Christine.
Oh, I think I remember ill-advised, or at least parents involved, was the freshman year coming in, upstart class to the school, and we decided to chalk the hill.
Oh, yeah.
The class of '86, and my dad actually was the one who filed all the stuff, I think, in a plate glass truck, and he helped basically lug all the stuff with some classmates up the hill to chalk the hill. Of course, the cowboy that owned the property got all mad, and so my dad had to have a kind of face-to-face negotiation with him, and we brought him back a whole, I don't know, thing of bourbon, you know. And then the story goes on as we remember that I think another class then wrote above the class of '86, F the class of '86, which is also very brilliant on their part. And then everyone got in trouble from Miss Silva, who was very angry to see a four-letter word on top of the out there. So I think some classmates went and stomped it out, and I don't know. I think she went and stomped the whole thing out.
How about first exposure to alcohol?
Senior hall.
Really? Bring it.
White cooler. What else?
California cooler?
Yeah, mine's Tightwad Hill. For a Cal game. I'm trying to remember when, but
Well,
it's always good stuff to drink on Tightwad Hill.
So I remember being at in 7th grade, being at a party thrown by Dina Prather. Jason Ricker and John Crawford found a 6-pack of beer in the garage, and there was this moment when, sort of the first time I'd seen tears, imbibing, and I also remember that party because it was a pool party, and I had grown up swimming, swim team, and there was only one kind of swimsuit, which was a Speedo. I didn't know that, I literally did not know that there was another kind of Speedo. Shut the whole party down. But I can't keep talking about myself here. So, we need a little.
I'm entertained though.
We need some other. We need some other.
So I feel like Julianne Miller, now Beatrice, and I, somewhere along the line, were trusted with teaching middle school kids about the evils of alcohol. So we actually had to go to this event down in San Diego and learn how to give these sessions at that time. I don't think either, maybe Julie.
No, not at that point.
Not at that point. Neither of us had drank yet. So, we go to these middle schools and we're like, we've got to not drink. And have you drunk anything before? We're both like, no. And then, well, what do you guys know? And I think that one of the moms that chaperoned us, she wasn't from Acalanes, I can't remember. And I remember being on the airplane because it was a dry weekend because we were all learning how to tell people not to drink alcohol. And on the plane back, she's like, God, I need a drink. I had it. And then, and then I think, as soon as alcohol, we went to a dance then, and my sister and Gretchen Lochran were just shit-faced at this dance, and they saw me and Julianne walk up, and they were like, hi!
And then I corrupted you guys.
And then we met Debbie.
Was anyone was anyone here actually on the fabled ski trip?
Ted, Debbie, Baird, Christine, Brad, Mark, Eric, and I don't know, maybe the statute of limitations would expire. How many of you were suspended, and do you have any particular insights on
How you spent those 3 days?
I have to say, the reason I was suspended is because I'm very Catholic. And so I literally, I'm not joking, had a sip. John Freeman had a beer that had Diet Coke around it or something. And I had a sip of that drink. And then when the time came, I'm so Catholic, I felt like I had to say that I had a sip of it. And once I told them, they said, well, then we have to suspend you because you had a sip. So. That's my story, I'm sticking to it.
One sip.
And so did all of you did you get ratted out by someone, or were you forced to confess to drinking on the bus?
I was forced to confess, yeah.
It was pretty hardcore, right? When you went in that office?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
It was. Shibling.
It
I didn't really drink.
It was great.
Did you have any recollections about the ski trip?
I do. I just remember them saying, you know, we have reports of you drinking, and
someone ratted you out?
yeah.
Oh, really?
Was it Bear?
I remember being kind of pissed off at someone about it.
That's my big question.
But what I remember, I was an aide for Mr. Morris and Mr. Marino,
Oh, yeah.
and they would not speak to me for.
Did they not know that we were
So this was Mike falling in the category of ill-advised, school-sponsored activity.
There were a lot of parents on those buses.
There were
chaperones.
They were in the front. You're right. But still, seriously.
Oh, well, yeah, so the alcohol, I mean, she's not here, so she can't defend herself, but Andy Mercer brought, as I was, I mean, it was a case and a half of beer in a duffel bag. Which is, I mean, at age 14, and I mean, she had older siblings, but still, that's, I mean, even today, that would be a little bit alarming, certainly for, 1982. So anyway, yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
I'll throw a question to the panel. So you're probably asking who's the teacher who had a profound impact on your life? I'm not gonna ask that.
Nice.
There were some pathetic teachers. A few. So wondering if you have an example.
You say your best or your worst?
Pathetic.
Oh, that's good.
Best or worst?
My best was Mr. Jensen.
The illusion.
That was our yearbook professor and English teacher.
Yeah,
Great guy. You know, I'm not surprised that I don't remember the worst. I think my chemistry teacher sucked, but I can't really remember him. So, I just remember that Chuck Templeton, who went on found OpenTable.com. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't have got through chemistry.
So he owes you a
to that company.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to remember the bad ones.
Yeah.
I remember Mr. McMasters. I wasn't too fond of. He was the woodshop teacher. He was just a mean guy.
Wait, when Jeff, did you have a Mr. McMasters story from earlier today?
He's the one who some kid was skateboarding through his woodshop and he kindly picked the skateboard.
We need to write a movie.
Right. No, it could be amazing.
I know. Yeah. Starts us off.
Yeah. So, Randy, you came to Stanley as you were a new student. Tell us about that.
So I moved from beautiful Fresno, California, and came to Stanley halfway through the 8th grade. And for the first, it was probably a week or more, sat by myself eating my lunch every single day. Like, I was absolutely terrified of, saying the wrong thing, getting rejected.
That's just such an unusual name.
But the thing that I remember most is that one day I'm sitting there and Julianne Miller and Amy Blunden came up. They're wearing their 8th grade cheerleader outfits. So like I'm sitting there going like, whoa, what's going on here? This day's got to a good start right now. And grabbed me. We're signing you up for noon league basketball. Pulled me and I was like, no thanks, I'm good. But they just literally pulled me across the parking lot and like forced me to do it. If they hadn't done that, I mean, I probably sat there the whole year. So. Just like, it's funny because you think back about people who, impacted your life, and, although I just recently spoke to Julianne, but we don't speak often, it's like, I feel like I owe Amy and Julianne a debt, and, not sure why they did that, but sure was nice of them. It really helped me out.
You know, Julianne, when she moved up from Whittier, 7th grade year, she ate lunch in the principal's office every day for like 3 weeks. You know, by herself.
That must be the
That's
reason.
probably why.
And I read it,
felt my pain.
with her when she saw me.
Yeah, she felt my pain. I also remember Chris Hession was awesome to me, and Chris Hession has one of my, you know, is the person that is, I think, my greatest high school memory, which is, and you remember this, we played in a East Oakland Summer League basketball, and we would go, our basketball team would go, and it was like hardcore inner city. Like we'd walk in and nobody would talk. Everybody was like, what are these guys, what are these white guys doing here? And they called us the Celtics as we walked in. I mean, but we had a good basketball team, and there was one day when we were playing this one team, and they had these two huge, like 6'7" giant guys, and one of them had come down and dunked, and Chris, somebody outlet the ball to Chris, and he took, you know, 2 dribbles and went up to lay the ball, and both these guys are under the basket like this, and like something just possessed him. He'd never dunked before in his life. He just got up there and just, I think he realized, wow, I'm up here and I can dunk this. And right on their heads, he just went like, bam! The gym just like, everybody ran out of the stadium.
The game was over.
Let's restart the game. It was complete chaos. And I think that might have been the same day that as we were leaving, Matt Warner, one of those guys, stopped Matt Warner and said, "Don't ever embarrass us like that again," and just dropped him. That might have been our last day of the. It's all, you know. I ran into Chris Hession at a business school thing. He went to UW, and all of his business school buddies were there. And yeah, I just had a great time telling him all that story about Chris Hession dunking.
I'm sure he liked that too.
And I mean, Chris admitted he'd never dunked before. He didn't even really. I think he never dunked in a game. It just happened. Yeah. So it's awesome.
Is that why the basketball team never dunked for
Including harms, right?
So what about, I don't know, you know, how well Acalanes prepared you, and this is for the panelists or for anyone, but how well Acalanes prepared you, you know, for college, life after college, whether, you know, academically, socially, otherwise. I mean, are there parts of it that you know, that work? I don't know, Steve, do you want to maybe chime in? You had some, you talked again 10 years ago a little bit about what it was like for you at Acalanes. Do you want to share some of those recollections?
Absolutely. I was a lousy student. I embraced that at the time. I wish I'd have gotten a little more out of school, but you know, the early 80s were an interesting time.
That makes us sound really old.
I got news for you. 30 years makes it sound.
Yeah.
Something I've been doing for the last 10 years of my life is following the development of this device we know as a computer. I imagine most of you remember John Conway.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody knows John Conway. He was my best friend. And you know, he passed away just a few years after he graduated. But John gave me my introduction into what was a computer. This was the time in 1984, my favorite year of all time, I think, is when the Commodore 64 was released. The most successful computer ever produced in America, 25 million of them. Began to learn things about that, and there was a computer programming course we had when we were freshmen, and they had 7 Apple II computers in there, and we knew it was for upperclassmen only. The next year, our sophomore year, I noticed there were 15, and John told me that there were the IBM PC, the original IBM PC. And my first thought was, well, what happened to the Apple IIs? Where did those go? You know? And I was also a career member of the Learning Skills program, which I've come to call Remedial Study Hall. You know, for those of us who just need a little more so we can help with this, or just to get through the day sometimes. And I remember walking in early in the year, the sophomore year, into the back room, and I found 2 of those Apple II computers set up and running. And I asked a teacher, I said, "Do we get to use these?" She said, "Sure, do you know how?" And I said, well, by God, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure this out. Because now I get to learn something that even the teachers don't know.
Yeah.
And I knew, so I told him, I said, what I want to do is type. I don't want to write. I was diagnosed with dysgraphia, and which is like dyslexia, except it involves writing. And I have a hard time writing with my hands. If I can just type a damn essay and erase stuff on a screen, you know, I understood the concept. And I sat back there with that computer and figured that out. And when that printer started printing that essay, people were getting up and coming in from the other room to see what the noise was. You know, and nobody had ever seen this. It hadn't been actually done. People were dabbling with programming, but nobody had ever actually used one for an application, you know. And it was just a simple essay for Mr. Freeman's English class. Former Secretary of State James Watt made some ugly comments and had to resign.
Yeah, right.
But I remember a couple days after I turned that in, the teacher came up to me. She said, they're passing their essay around in the teacher's lounge at lunchtime. None of the teachers had ever seen anything like that. Printed on a dot matrix printer, and turned the sides off, you know, and that became a standard for me. And I think I was one of the first students in Acalanes to ever do that. To ever actually use a computer for an applicable purpose, not just nonsense, you know. And in my junior year, I took that programming course and learned absolutely nothing. Mr. Madera was the teacher, math teacher, I believe he was. He knew nothing about programming. It was evident. He'd write a program on the board, type that in, and see if you can make the computer do something. And that was all we ever did, you know. And after I got out of the military, I dabbled with computers there, and I just finally got one of my own in the Windows 98 era. And I said, I'm going to learn all of this. There was the PC Novice magazine series. I still have them today. My foundations are there. And I've been following this, but the last 10 years has been the history and development and what is known as free software. Free as in freedom. And that there's a world of software out there that was given to us. It began in the 1980s. In 1984, the free software movement was launched by a programmer who said, I'm going to change the world, and I'm going to write an operating system and give it away to anyone in the world who wants it. And it still exists today. It's been in existence for over 25 years.
Well, you know what's fascinating about what you just said is, and I'd be curious to know what, I mean, I didn't even know that these computers we're talking about and these classes, that's news to me. I didn't even know that any of that existed. I mean, did other people know that I mean, there was a class we could take? I don't have any.
I had one at home, but we don't make Pac-Man on it.
Because the computer was a toy.
Yeah,
we bought the Commodore 64 at Toys R Us for $200.
There was a class at Acalanes.
Well, that's Steve, you said
computer programming, that's all it was.
Wow.
Because I remember I went to GBC to take some computer programming classes. And some you had to, I drove there. Yeah. So I don't remember that being in high school.
Yeah. No, that's,
it was a very different time because the computing technology there was very pure, very at the scientific levels.
Yeah.
The first time these devices had ever been in a box on a table. These things were the size of rooms in the beginning, in the 40s, you know, and through the 60s, it finally got down where individual people can buy these.
Yeah.
Well, then individual members of the public have rights and legal, you know, boundaries and things that are yours to be protected, you know, and it's really getting lost, and I don't want to see it get commercialized to the point where we lose that purity.
do you want to talk at all about your some of your kind of social challenges and some of what you talked about 10 years ago?
Yeah, you know, passing that picture around, I'm up in the upper left-hand corner. That's the senior year, right? I had 2 classes my senior year. Electronics with Mr. Pleiss, second period. That was for the second time, just because I had to have another class. And then government with Mr. Blackman in the afternoon. I would go up onto that bleacher in the corner there and go to sleep for several hours in the middle of the day because I had no classes. And then I was out there and everybody just started coming out here to the bleachers. Oh, we're going to be here a while, so I just got up.
You're the best guy in that picture. I'm glad you were there.
And then everybody left, and I said, all right, I can go back to sleep. I just barely got through school. I was not a good student. Not sure why. You know, Larry Freeman was definitely the best I ever experienced. Failed a semester of English 2 and went back and took him for English 3. I still remember a look on his face when I handed him my paper, you know. You sure? Like you want to step up, huh? I want to try, you know. my worst experience for a teacher was probably my biology teacher, Mr. Scott.
Yeah.
I remember my mother went to back to school night. She says, "Oh my God, if you fail that course, I totally understand." I didn't think it was that bad. A little boring, perhaps, but Mr. Plyce's electronics class my senior year, I literally was trying to fail it because I didn't need the credits. And he gave me a D. He was nice. He just gave me a D. No need to fail you. But I would wander the halls. I would wander the halls in my free periods, with nothing to do. And I'm not proud about it. It's just that's where I was back then, I have trouble adapting with information on somebody else's schedule. I study computer history at my pace, and I study what I want to learn. And that's, how I seem to absorb information. Otherwise, it's best that I simply have a job. Military life was good for me. I work today as a machinist, a profession that I truly is my greatest accomplishment in life, earning that title. It's an industry that I really love. It's meticulous. I don't answer a phone. I don't deal with money, and I don't talk to the customers.
Amen.
That's just the kind of work I like. So.
Asha, Joel, do you have thoughts on Mark's question about the best or worst teacher?
So the story I told about Harold and the Purple Pen, that was Mrs. Temp's class. It was honors English. I had Mr. Freeman for sophomore English, and he didn't put me in honors English. So he was sometimes I didn't like his style. It was pretty square, and so him being out there and sitting on top of the desk, I was like, "What's the matter with you? Get back in your," So he didn't actually put me in there, so I forced him to let me take a test to go to her class. So I was really happy to be in her class, and she taught me to read with a pencil, and I still kind of do that. And she's like, "Own the book. It's your book. Mark it up. Make it your own." And I still try to do that with my son a little. Class I didn't like was, I think it was a ninth grade, Mr. Bachman. Oh yeah, yes, it was Mr. Bachman. I thought it was my nightmare. It was bad time in math. Yeah, it's very, did you have it? Right, math. It was very all over the place, and you didn't know what mood he was going to be in that day. And then I was just starting to find out that math was easier for me when it was basic, but then when it became more abstract and I wasn't getting it, I didn't get his at all.
Actually, I was going to say Mr. Scott also was one of my less than stellar experiences. He was ready for retirement. I think he was old. I get it. But that was also the class where I realized I needed glasses because I could read the board and I liked sitting in the back, and I guess my grades started to show, that I wasn't really paying attention. So that's what I got out of that class.
You have a favorite teacher?
Sure. Mr. Eggertson, of course, drama, and really he invested in so many of us and encouraged so many people. It was great. I remember Mr. Jensen is a great guy, a wonderful guy, but sophomore year, two things happened. One, my mother came one day to deliver my lunch and embarrass me in front of everybody. Joey! And Jeff, you were in there, Matt, and some other. I was totally intimidated because I wasn't doing well, and so I asked for a transfer. And Mr. Jensen sat me down, everybody left class, and he said, "You can't do this." He really tried to talk me out of it. "You can do better, and here's how you can do better." And at the time, I was like, no, you don't. I go to basketball practice with these guys. They're not going to give up. I'm never going to catch up. But so he eventually let me go, but he said it's not a good decision. I went to Mr. Freeman's class. It was his Spice Odyssey. So looking back, I now that I'm older, I understand that principle, and the fact that he was willing to help me, and he would have helped any one of us. Should have stuck with it, but you guys are pretty intimidating and pretty smart. So,
you want to talk about? Just all of you presumably remember Joel was. I think you were probably in the plays. I remember you even in the play as a freshman. You sort of you found your way in, and drama was a big part of your high school existence. You want to talk about, and then you liked it so much you actually joined the musical as well, and had a big part or a medium-sized part.
Yeah.
You want to talk about what drama meant to you and why it's significant to you at that time?
No. Yeah, so just remember, here we go. So freshman year, I remember there was an audition going on.
Up the down staircase?
Up the down staircase, and my older brother.
He reads it in your book every
I don't remember.
You study your place. All 4 years.
So, my older brother Tim was a senior, I was a freshman, and he was my ride home. And I knew there was an audition going on. I didn't really have a place there. Freshmen couldn't be in a play, and so I ditched my brother. I knocked on the door. I literally interrupted Mr. Egerton, asked him if I could audition, and he let me. So he gave me a little bit role in the first play. So that was fun. That was great.
And sort of did it all, I don't know, the significance of it all for you and your development.
Right.
What, you know,
yeah, it's clearly paid off. I mean, it's really. It was fun. It was great. I had a great time. So.
Let me say.
Yeah.
So, you had asked a question about something that happened to you in high school that may have had a kind of a profound effect on you after.
Yeah.
So when I was in Mrs. Osterland's class for history, she had us do a cultural day, and so I went home and I told my mom, I said, we're doing cultural day, we get to bring some food. So my mom made this snack that's called furphy, and it sounds horrible, sounds like barfy, right? It sounds horrible, but it's really just an Indian sweet. So she worked all the time, but that night she made it by hand, by scratch, and she put food coloring in it and colored this dough that looks like silly putty or Play-Doh, and colored it pink, and then laid it out and put coconut, which is very Indian, and almonds on top, and it's all festive and it's ready for you. And I took it proudly in class, and no one ate it. No one ate it. And so how many of you have eaten Indian food? Ever, right? So in high school, maybe not, right? So now, so it was really, really profound for me and I never told my mom. I went home and I'm like, oh yeah, they ate it all. And I couldn't tell her, right? And now I go to work and I go to an Indian wedding and I bring a box of the sweets and there's all these weird colors and everyone eats it all and you guys all go to Indian food now, right? So what happened to me from that is you're all nice people and I just couldn't figure out why no one would eat it. I went to college and I had the same experience where there weren't that many Indians, believe it or not, at UCSB. And so my friends and I, this weekend, 30 years ago, we walked in the office and we filled a form, we made an Indian club called Sangam. And it's still there today, 30 years ago. And it was just about, showing Indian culture, show a little bit about, we were kind of full of ourselves and showed classic Indian, new movies and stuff. And it's completely different now. They party, they show Bollywood movies. If you go to their website, they're totally different. But that was really big for me. It's I just couldn't figure out, what is it? Why aren't people getting it? And it was because if you're not exposed to it and you don't see it anywhere, then how can you appreciate it? So that was a big impact.
So we talked about how one of the sort of significant moments in your social group was when Ernest Lynn decided to run for
Ernest.
Run for office.
Ernest for office, yes. It was a big deal for us because we were kind of a small geeky group of people. Sorry, Christine. We were just this small geeky group of people, and we didn't drink or do anything, and we would go to Lippert's or go bowling, and
you missed out on the banana and the tape.
We missed everything, all the cool things you see in Mean Girls or the other movies. I'm like, really? I missed everything. So but then Ernest decided that he was going to run for office. So that was a really big deal for us. Hey, go Ernest, right? We campaigned for him and organized things. And even when I messaged him about coming, his message back to me was, Asha, are you at it again? Are you recruiting us? And he came. So it was good.
And so, forgive my ignorance, but did you win?
Yeah, it was it wasn't even a big position student council, but it was very good for me because I got to meet a lot of people. I was pretty shy back then, and I didn't really know about all these floats, and I never went to homecoming. And then now to be a part of it, I got to meet a lot of people, and I went on Asha too because she always made us do things. Otherwise, I would probably just stay at home all the time.
Yeah, I made you go to senior ball together.
Yeah.
2 of you. We said we have to go. right? And then my sister bought us alcohol and we didn't even drink it. She still tells the story. My brother-in-law, they've been married 30 years, and he still tells the story. We creeped downstairs to check on Christine and Ernest Nash and Kevin Moss and Steve Sant and who else? Oh, there's someone else there. Or maybe Susan was down. And they're maybe Carrie taught, and they like creeped down because they thought we were having an orgy or something. And there we were watching Christine the movie and doing nothing. We had this great chance. And, yeah, very funny. Yeah, we were very. I made you. Yes.
Jeff, do you want to say anything about how I don't know, when you arrived at Stanford, how well prepared you felt you were based on sort of the academics at Acalanes?
I thought Acalanes was A+. It was great.
Yeah.
I felt very well prepared. Yeah. I don't have, both socially and
yeah. Did you struggle at all with War and Peace?
How does he remember this? Yeah. How the heck do you remember this stuff? I think it was the only C I've ever gotten. And I think I stayed in the library till, I don't remember how many pages War and Peace, but it was many. I think I stayed in the library for like 4 days straight and read it. And I wrote what I thought was a great paper. Big C and C on the final grade. Yeah.
Stanford or?
Stanford, yeah.
You know, what I remember about in high school was feeling like any non-A that I got would somehow impact the rest of my life in a terrible way. And it's just...
Did it?
No, of course not. It's like, you know, now, I just think that that's so ridiculous. And I hope with my own kids, you know, the idea that kids are going to school so stressed out about those, you know, those singular details. It's just like, I hope I can, my parents didn't do that to me. I guess I did it to myself. But I just think it's so ridiculous. I mean, I have a guy I went to college with who was an auto mechanic for 5 years and became a nuclear physicist. And he just, you know, for that period of time, he just wasn't into school for a while, but he turned out great. And I just, now I just think that all that stress was just so ridiculous. I just wish that I had been wiser with regard to those kinds of things. It was just too much worry about, you know, what the grade was.
I would say in terms of preparation for me, Larry Freeman really helped with a lot of preparation in terms of writing and in terms of critical thinking. I really felt like he pushed us, and I felt like he was a little outside the box in terms of, you know, we got him straight out of, I mean, he's still there. And my nieces have told me stories, but it's, I think it may be a little different. But we got him right out of Berkeley. So I think he flunked out of law school. Or just chose to leave. I don't know which one. But
the teachers are still there.
Well, he's the only one I know
Freeman
about.
and Cusick.
Cusick.
Yeah. Auto shop? Anyone?
Okay, does somebody want to know, do they still have a snack bar in the cafeteria?
They do.
You can buy something. You can get like a hot meal, right? I was thinking about the movie that captured the high school experience, and I was thinking about sitting at the Park Theater and seeing Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Was anyone that first week that they showed it? It felt like the entire school was there.
Well, it opened right, it was like 2 weeks before we were starting freshman year.
Where's Lon?
Oh, yeah.
He's supposed to be coming. I thought I saw his name somewhere.
Yeah, that was a little mischief on my part. Yeah, I would like to know what Dave Walker is doing. But
Thank you for who is the organizing? This is great to get everybody together.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you know, I meant to say this. Brad Taylor is really Brad. Anyway, Brad really is Yeoman. Oh yeah, I've done Yeoman's work in terms of sort of the website and of course Christine.
Is he a Springville grad?
Brad.
I have to say, the reason I got up to go talk about in the back, I think this or that was our 5th grade classroom. So Brad and Bobby and I went to
Oh yeah, the smart kids transfer.
It was in Camden. We were at Burton and then Burton Valley. We were the first graduating class in Burton Valley. This is Burton. So we were here the last year Burton. And this could have been our regular. This is the one next door. I thought this was somebody else. It's actually the same class, which is crazy. And then we were the first class in Burton Valley.
Yeah, right. Any other movies that speak to? I mean,
Breakfast Club.
Yeah, Breakfast Club.
That's our song.
Yeah.
Well, Doug was saying Porky was really
I think it's Doug's favorite.
16 Candles. Yeah. Maybe some Anthony Michael Hall movies. Yeah. Weird Science.
Valley Girl.
Vacation. Pretty in Pink.
Oh yeah, all these John music.
I ran into Nicolas Cage in a restroom at LAX. I did, and we were dressed, but I was going in. Literally, I bumped into him and said, "Excuse me, hey, you're Nicolas Cage." This is like 1990, and I just start talking. He's like, okay. So love Valley Girl. That's.
Did he say it was a favorite movie?
I wanted to go retro on him, and I think he's like, oh, okay. He walked on,
So. Oh, Brad, we were just singing your praises.
My powers of spam.
Yeah, no, thank you for everything you did to corral.
Can I ask, like, the people that were in symphony and music, we had one teacher, and I can't remember his name.
Band.
What? Band. Well, some people were in symphony. We were in band, right?
Symphonic band.
A symphonic band.
Come on.
Symphonic band.
Marching band.
And marching band, yeah. But we had one teacher, maybe it was Mr. Duffer. I felt like he was the first teacher, music teacher, that thought that we were actually capable of something. Like we did, and I remember the stuff, we did Carmina Burana with the choir. It was unbelievable. We were like, we played music. I remember my parents were just like, whoa. You know, they sat through a lot of concerts. And he was...
Well, he really pushed us all to compete and go to these musical competitions.
Yes,
yeah. We were graded and reviewed, and Jim Williams and I had this weird idea that we were going to do a duet. Trumpet, saxophone.
Yes.
And Mr. Duffer made us play it in class. It's like, oh my gosh, it's a round, it's amazing, you're going to hear this thing, and it's just me. So we played it, and afterwards it was total silence. What was that? And he's like, okay.
He was actually not there very long.
No,
but he made a real impact.
Yeah, it was like 1 year, but it was kind of 1 year of like real music.
It was Mr. Roach, and then and he was very old
school.
The principal now at Acalanes is Mr. Bell. I mean, is that the greatest name
Saved by the Bell.
for a principal? But anyway, and then it was Mr. Myers who had come over from Miramani, and he was there. He was there for many years, and even when the Performing Arts Center had just been built, when we moved in to Lafayette, been here 16 years, and in the Spring Hill Valley, and I don't know, I just went over because I just wanted to, I heard that Mr. Myers was still there, and he said, oh, let me give you a tour. He said, you remember the way things used to be, and I mean, literally, the tiles were falling off the ceiling, and he was so proud that they built this whole center, and if any of you haven't seen it, it's unique, and I mean, it's unique to Acalanes. Obviously, if you go in this area, there's so many more performing arts centers than there was. But if you remember, we were in the back of the school, and I mean, I don't even know if a lot of people knew where it was.
Except for the band people.
By the choir room. We knew the choir room. It's right there too.